If you're a tourist visiting the United Kingdom, it would be a shame not to take a peek inside some of its many beautiful churches. After all, England is home to over 40,000 of them. And when you've been around for nearly 2,000 years, there's plenty of time to accumulate places of worship. That's not even mentioning the other countries of the UK. Scotland is also pretty religious for such a dreary place. While Wales has its fair share too. These nations might be known for their castles, cathedrals, and the odd palace, but their churches are worth exploring if you look hard enough. Today, we'll be taking a tour of the oldest churches in England, Scotland, and Wales to see how they compare. Let's begin. We'll start our tour in Kent, England, where the remains of a Roman church lie just outside the town of Canterbury. Built at the end of the 3rd century AD, this was one of the earliest attempts to convert Britain to Christianity. Little more than a ruin today. Its roof collapsed long ago and only parts of its walls remain. Still, archaeologists were able to determine its purpose thanks to the presence of a baptistry and other accoutrements found nearby. The discovery of human bones suggested that it may have had a role in the martyrdom of St. Alban, the first British saint. He was supposedly executed in the year 334, refusing to renounce his faith in Christ, though no bones from him or anyone else was ever found. It's easy to get lost in the history of these ancient sites, especially considering the area itself is steeped in legend. From here, let's jump over to Hadrian's Wall, the famous structure built by the Romans to keep the Picts out of Britannia. Near the wall stands another tiny Roman chapel. This one is actually still standing and dates back to the 3rd or 4th century. Archaeologists have dated it between 280 and 360 AD, which means it could have been built during the reign of Diocletian or Constantine. All that remains of this former chapel is a single room. It was probably destroyed sometime after the Romans left Britain in the early 5th century. But it's still the oldest surviving building anywhere along the wall. Its exact purpose is unknown, but it was almost certainly used for military recruitment. After all, this was the primary reason for the wall's construction. Meanwhile, just across the border in Scotland, there's a different kind of chapel near the village of Larrow. Dating back to the 7th century, it was once a sacred space for the Pictish people who lived there. They were a collection of tribes native to eastern and northern Scotland, whose origins are shrouded in mystery. Their name is thought to derive from a word meaning painted people, due to the many Pictish stone monoliths, decorated with strange symbols and images. The so-called Book of Deer tells us that St. Egbert converted many Picts to Christianity in the 7th century, which included the construction of several chapels like this one. This particular site is considered the oldest Christian chapel in Scotland. For many years, scholars believed it was used as a burial ground for Pictish royalty. Although recent research suggests this isn't true, instead it seems that the chapel served as a place of pilgrimage and that it continued to do so well into the Viking Age. For our next stop, we can return south to the Church of Santa Maria in the County Durham. While its exact origins are unknown, this chapel was likely constructed during the 9th century during the reign of Alfred the Great. He was the Anglo-Saxon king of Wessex, whose military victories against the Danes helped to preserve English culture. Under his reign, Christianity took root throughout his kingdom, and many pagan practices were either banned or heavily discouraged. In fact, Alfred himself may have been responsible for building the chapel, but if he did, he wasn't the first to do so. Before Alfred came to power, a wooden church stood in its place. It was probably a simple affair, but still an important symbol of the Christian values that Alfred sought to promote. Of course, we can't talk about English churches without mentioning the cathedrals, the grand houses of worship that dominate the skyline of many cities. Chester Cathedral is one of the largest and most impressive, boasting a mix of architectural styles from various eras. Despite being relatively small compared to others in England, it features a number of interesting historical relics, including a series of mummified cats that date back to the 19th century. According to legend, they were donated by an Egyptian man who wanted to help restore the cathedral's fortunes. While this story is almost certainly a myth, the mummies themselves are real and have become something of a local celebrity. Meanwhile, the cathedral-esque clock tower is the tallest in the city and it's stained. Glass windows are among the finest in the country. But if cathedrals are what you're looking for, then head over to North Wales, where the Bangor Cathedral towers over the town of Bangor-on-Dee. Founded in the 12th century, it was originally a priory serving the Augustinian canons who lived there. During the 15th century, Its status was upgraded to a cathedral following the creation of the Diocese of St. Osoph. From here, it became the mother church of all churches in Arfon and one of 6 Welsh cathedrals. Today it's home to the final resting place of many notable figures, including poet Robert Jones and Bishop John Williams. Not far away, the magnificent St. Osoph Cathedral stands in the city of St. Osoph, founded in the 13th century by the Bishop of Coventry. Unfortunately, very little remains of the original structure as it was largely destroyed during the English Civil War. It was subsequently rebuilt in the 19th century, now serves as a Grade I listed building. But if cathedrals are your thing, make sure to visit Brecon Cathedral, a medieval house of worship located in the town of Brecon. Wales, it dates back to the 13th century, but its origins can be traced back even further to the 6th century, when a wooden church stood on the same spot. Throughout its long history, it has served as a prison and a barracks, as well as a house of worship. Its most famous relic is the 15th century Brecon Y Dreg, a large brass eagle lectern that was once used to hold the Book of Common Prayer, and we can travel across the border to Berwick upon Tweed, a market town in the county of Northumberland. Here you'll find the ruins of a church that was once an important part of the local community. Construction began in the late 11th century under the direction of Walter of Durham. He was a monk and writer who played an important role in the development of Christianity in northern England. His vision for this church was an imposing one, featuring a choir, 2 towers, and a square crossing. Fortunately, the project was never completed, and the church remained unfinished for centuries. Even so, it was still used as a place of worship until the 18th century, when it was abandoned. Today, the ruins are a popular tourist destination. Our next stop takes us back to London, where we can marvel at the beauty of St. Margaret's Church. Situated in the heart of Westminster, it was built in the 16th century during the reign of King Edward VI. Famous for its elaborate architecture, it's been immortalized in paintings by artists such as William Hogarth and William Turner. Inside, visitors will find a number of interesting monuments, including one dedicated to Sir Thomas More, who served as Lord Chancellor under Henry VIII. Finally, church is home to several notable members of the British royal family. Poet laureate John Dryden is buried beneath a marble monument in the chancel, while James II and Mary II are commemorated by an elaborate memorial in the south aisle. Last but not least, we'll travel to Lincoln, England, home to the magnificent Lincoln Cathedral. Built in the 14th century, it's widely regarded as one of the finest examples of Gothic architecture in the country. Standing at 160 meters tall, its spire was once the tallest in England, and its stained glass windows are among the largest in Europe. The cathedral's interior is just as impressive, featuring a number of intricate carvings and a particularly fine example of medieval vaulting. Perhaps most fascinating, however, is the history associated with this house of worship. Legend has it that the original structure was built in the 7th century by Bishop Remigius of Lincoln. Fortunately, very little remains of this building today. What we do know is that during the 11th century, a new church was constructed on the same site. This structure was largely destroyed by an earthquake in 1284, leading to the construction of the current cathedral. So there we have it, just a brief tour of some of the oldest churches in England, Scotland, and Wales. These places of worship offer a glimpse into the rich history of Christianity in the United Kingdom, and each one has its own unique beauty and charm. Whether you're interested in architecture, history, or simply want to experience the spiritual atmosphere, these churches are definitely worth a visit. Thanks for watching.